Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Talking with Ty podcast. This is season 3, episode 2, and I have a super amazing guest to have a conversation with today. For anybody that is tuning in for the first time, as I say every time we go live, Talking with Ty is an unscripted podcast that talks about the story behind the brand. I like to focus on the story because we all have a title and we all have a brand that we put so much into, but everybody has a story. And I truly believe it's the story that connects us. So, Talking with Ty is a podcast. Um, it says that I'm having a problem with Facebook. We're just going to remove that. Some things happen sometimes when you're live, guys, and we're just going to keep on rolling. So, as I said before, we're unscripted. When I bring these guests on, I have never had these conversations with a guest before. And I like to keep it like that because I feel like if we have the conversation on air, it's authentic and it's true. And I think you guys really can feel that. And that's why you show up each and every time we go live to hear these conversations. And today, I told Josh, and he thinks that I tell this to everybody. I'm going to put him on blast, everybody that I have a conversation with. But it's something special that I think about Josh. I don't know if it's the excitement that he brings when I'm around him, or the way that he just motivates me and makes me want to be better as an AE, because yes, I get the privilege of sharing that space with him also. But even when I was reading his bio, there were so many things about Josh that I never would have known had we not taken the time to sit down to have this conversation today. So it is my true hopes and prayers that today something is said that inspires somebody, something is said that transforms somebody's life, or even the trajectory of your career within multifamily. So Josh Gold, usually I don't read anybody's bio, but there's some things about Josh that I told you guys that I even learned when I was reading about Josh. So I want to share some things about him. It says Josh Gold, seasoned association management professional with over 25 years of experience. He currently serves as the Senior Vice President for Member Education, Programs, and Affiliate Engagement at the National Apartment Association. Prior to NAA, Josh held the position of Executive Vice President at the Florida Apartment Association, the second largest state affiliate of NAA. Josh is a certified association executive, accredited by the American Society of Association Executives, and holds the Certified Meeting Professional credential from the Convention Industry Council. He has been recognized with numerous awards, including being named Young and Aspiring Association Executive by Association Trends magazine, and receiving the 2020 Chris Christensen Association Executive Award from the National Apartment Association. In 2023, Josh was inducted into the Florida Apartment Association's Hall of Fame. Josh is a proud graduate of Ohio University with a Bachelor of Science in Journalism. But the most important role is being a dedicated father to his daughter, Katie, who attends college at Purdue University in Indiana. Today, Josh and we're going to focus on some key insights. Now, we're going to have a conversation and we're going to go way deep beyond the things that I'm going to tell you guys about right now. But the key insights we're going to talk about today is making association management a lifelong career. We're also going to talk about being a leader, not a boss, the importance of authentic leadership in today's workplace. We're going to talk about what does volunteer engagement look like in 2024. And Josh and we're also going to talk about his biggest takeaways from the 8 years he spent working at Walt Disney Company. If you are not already standing on your feet with all of the amazing things that I just said about Josh Gold, you are tripping. So please stand to your feet, give a huge round of applause, and let's welcome Josh Gold to the stage.
Oh my
Hey,
God, Ty,
Josh.
you are too much. It's like last week, Josh walked on water, and then he turned the water into wine. I mean, I'm just a man here. I'm just a guy.
You know what? That's what we do when you're on Talking with Ty.
You
We
blew
just
me up.
highlight and bring out those amazing things about you. And there were so many things that I have not even touched on. So we're going to
Ooh,
touch on those things today. Josh, first and foremost, welcome to Talking with Ty. Thank you so much for allotting the time out of your day, because I just read your bio and all the amazing things that you have going on. So we know you busy. So
I'm
thanks for
busy.
taking the time to have the conversation with me today. So I've said enough. We're just going to jump right into it because I think we're going to take up the whole hour. Who is Josh Gold?
Sure. Okay. Well, first of all, thanks so much for inviting me. I know I cornered you at a meeting and I was like, how come all these people get to be on your show and I don't ever get asked? So I did kind of ask myself to be on your show. So I don't know if I should thank you or thank myself, but here I am and you got me. And I'm super excited to be here. A little bit about my background because there's some people who are probably watching who I don't know. So I'll kind of talk it through. I grew up in the DC area. My dad was a Navy guy, so he was at the Pentagon. So I kind of grew up in the suburbs here in DC. And then I went to school, as you said, in Ohio University. And I thought I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. I thought maybe I wanted to be on TV. I found through just my time there that that wasn't for me. What I really enjoyed was sort of the marketing aspects of journalism and the writing and the creativity. And one summer, I needed an internship, and I came back home to the DC area. And of course, here in DC, we're just lousy with trade associations and associations of all kinds. Every single industry you can think of has an office here, and that's who was hiring in DC. So I was able to get a couple internships. I worked for the national brick distributors, like clay bricks that they use to make houses and roads. And then I also worked for the National RV Parks and Campgrounds Association. And both of those were great experiences. I didn't know anything about associations. I was a junior in college, and I really liked the interaction with members, and I liked like providing a service for people and fighting for their industry. And every industry, doesn't matter what it is, they have some sort of issue that they're fighting for or against. And you really kind of get to know the people, and you start really making it your own issue, even though like today, I don't own an apartment. I now live in an apartment, but I haven't lived in an apartment in a long time. So my connection to the apartment industry is kind of tangential, but I know the people, the great people who are in this industry, and you come to love them. And so then their issue becomes your issue, and you can get very passionate about it. So I liked that. I wasn't just a cog in some big corporate wheel. So when I got out of college, I immediately started looking for jobs at associations. So I moved back to DC, and I worked for the International Association of Convention and Visitor Bureaus. These are the entities in each city that help bring conventions to the cities and bring economic impact to the vendors in that city. So I worked there for a year in their communications department. Then I worked for another association out in DC called the Healthcare Distribution Management Association. These are wholesalers of drugs. Again, just a small little niche industry, but lots of people in that industry who really care about what happens to their jobs and their slice of the economy. And then I went to go work for an association management company. So for the people on the call today who don't know what an association management company is, oftentimes if you're a small association, you might not have enough money to have your own staff, your own dedicated office space, your own office equipment. So what you do is you find an association management company, which is a for-profit company that manages associations, multiple associations out of one office. So in my office where I work, we had the American Edged Products Manufacturers Association. These were knife makers and swords and anything with an edged scissors. And then we also had the National Association of Public Insurance Adjusters. And we also had, my group was the National Association of Metal Finishers. So they were all kind of different groups, but they all used the same staff. So we'd have a big switchboard, and the gal up front, like if this line lit up, she'd say, "Good afternoon, AAPMA." And then she'd say, "Please hold." And then she'd press another button, "Good afternoon, NAMF." We were everybody's office. And the idea was The member didn't know that they didn't have some big headquarters office in DC, but we were serving as all of that. There was economies of scale there for them, so they were able to have their own staff while not dedicated staff. We were working to be their headquarters. And so I know some of our associations in the apartment industry, they are also with an AMC. So they might be in an office where there's multiple associations that are run out of the same office. That was a fascinating experience. Because I got to work on several different clients. So I got to learn lots of different industries. I had to learn time management because there's a lot going on with a lot of different things. It also helps, like, if you're bored on a project, you can say, like, I don't want to deal with the knife makers anymore. I'm going to work with the public insurance adjusters today, or the HR executives, or whatever other group was out there. You just can switch your gears if you were able to. And the other cool thing about that is because they're so small, I was only 28 years old, and they made me the deputy director of a national association because, it was a small organization, but I got to have that kind of impact. And over time, that association decided that they wanted to move their headquarters down to Orlando, Florida. There was another association that was in the same industry they were in, and they wanted to co-house with that association and eventually merge the two organizations into one association because there just really wasn't a need for two different associations in that same industry. So my boss came to me, the owner of the AMC, and said, will you move down to Orlando and help run this group, help merge them with this other group, and eventually hopefully bring it back to DC? So I said, yeah, that sounds like an adventure. Sounds like fun. So we moved down to Orlando, and I became the executive director at 29 years old of this trade association in the metal finishing industry. I felt like a real big deal. And got to have the experience of trying to work with another organization to merge our two organizations. It wasn't entirely successful. As you can imagine, my organization was about 50 years old. Their organization was 85 years old. Nobody on the leadership side wanted to be the leader who killed their association. So they're like, well, I don't know, maybe we could do this. We tried to find things that we could work together on, but it wasn't going so well. So ultimately, the two associations just couldn't get it together, and I decided to leave that organization and go work for the Walt Disney Company. Obviously, major employer in Central Florida, a great organization. I had heard so much about Disney. I had an affinity for Disney. I'm not a huge Disney adult or whatever, but I like Disney, and I obviously grew up liking Disney. And there was an opportunity to be a salesperson for the Walt Disney Company to associations in the Northeast, and get them to bring their meetings and conventions down to Disney and hold those conventions at a Disney owned and operated property. I thought, this is perfect. I was an association guy in the Northeast, so I'd just be selling to me, like to basically who I was. The downside was most people in hospitality sales and hotel sales, they like got out of college, then they worked the front desk at the Marriott, then they worked in catering, and then they eventually worked their way up to sales guy at a big convention resort. I had none of that experience. So I wrote this cover letter. I don't know if anybody reads the cover letters at Walt Disney Company, but I wrote, and I was like, look, I have never sold anything other than memberships or sponsorships or whatever. And I've never worked at a hotel, but I've definitely been sold to. And I've been on a lot of site inspections with hotel sales guys trying to get me to book my meeting at their hotel. So I think I knew something about being a customer. Well, lo and behold, they called me in. I met with a bunch of people at the company. They were really excited because they're like, Josh, you have your CA, your Certified Association Executive Credential. And that, we think, when people see that and you're making sales calls on them, they're going to feel like some kind of kinship with you, some sort of connection with you. And we think you're going to be very successful in selling to associations because they're going to say, this isn't a hotel sales guy. This is one of us. And he's just trying to show us the availability of products at Disney. And so they hired me, and I was very successful. That's exactly what happened. I'd find myself on site inspections and walking around property with these meeting planners or executive directors, and we just start talking about association management. We weren't even talking about necessarily like Disney products and services. They knew that Disney products and services were good. They want to have a connection with me as a person, and I was able to sell them on those products. So Orlando is a highly competitive hospitality market. There's lots of convention hotels. In fact, there's more convention hotels in Orlando than anywhere but Las Vegas. But I definitely got more than my fair share of bookings because of that connection I was able to make with people. And so that's a little bit about what kind of sliding into what we're going to talk about. But being an authentic person, being a whole person, and not this persona of sales guy that a lot of people put on when they're making sales calls is really important, because in the end, they're buying you and they're buying your product. And if they don't trust you or they don't see that authenticity of person, you're not going to make the sale. So there were times when I had calls and we'd be having dinner at Disney and we're having this great time and it's a big piece of business. And I'm saying, this is not a good fit for us. And we're not a good fit for you. And we would
Yeah.
say over the dessert course, I don't think you should book us. I don't think this is the right fit for your
You
product.
know, I love that. And to insert anybody out there that's a supplier partner in this industry, I think you said something key. I used to be a rep for Finder.
Okay.
And so many people, I was in Memphis, and so many people would be like, Ty, I just want to be your friend. I tell my regional, like, let's use her product just so she can come in here and I can be friends with her. But
Right.
you're right. Showing up with your whole self. And I love that you talked about they wanted to know more about the association world, and you were able to connect with the client in a way and not selling them on a resort because they already know. And it's if you're selling apartments.com, Finder, Rent, people already know the product.
Right.
So you that they're buying from, and if you can connect with somebody and the need is there, they will make the product fit. So I love that you said that. I want to ask you a question. You talked about having your certified association executive accreditation. How
Yeah.
important do you think that that is?
You know, it's super important to me. Yeah, it's
Okay.
important to me. I don't know that. I mean, I hope employers out there are looking for people with their CAE. Certainly would be beneficial to me if I ever go look for another job. But I think it's super important to me. And when I was interning at one of those associations, at the RV Parks and Campgrounds Association, I had a mentor, which we'll talk about mentorship in a second too, who took an interest in me and said, I think this is an industry for you. I think association management fits your personality and who you are really well. And I started to get really interested, and she had her CAE. And I was like, tell me about these initials after your name. And she explained it to me. And so I was only a junior in college, and I already was thinking about, well, if I'm going to be in this industry, I want to be in that top 2% that has the CAE. So from the moment I started with my first job, I joined the ASAE, the American Society of Association Executive, got really involved in them, started going to educational things so I could earn my CEUs, so I'd eventually get to sit for the exam. I sat for that exam at 28 years old. I'm pretty sure I don't want to brag, but I think I'm probably the youngest CAE or almost the youngest CAE they ever had because I knew from day one, I know, right? I knew from day one that I wanted it. And I think a lot of people kind of fall into this industry. They don't mean to be an association executive, but I actually kind of wanted to do that from day one. So I was able to get on that train super early and then ultimately got my CMP, my certified meeting professional accreditation as well, because I was doing so much in meetings. And so it was really important to me that when I was dealing with hotels as a meeting planner, they knew that I was serious and I knew what I was doing. And there's a lot of people planning meetings. There's only a few that actually know the proper way to plan a meeting. So I wanted them to know on the outset, especially during contract negotiation too, like, don't pull any mess with me. Like, I know what I'm supposed to be looking for in this hotel contract because I have my CMP. And I do think that kind
You're
of.
the first person film industry that was looking to be on the association's executive side.
Right.
A lot of us came from being on site. We came from, and that happened by fluke and it happened by accident. So all of it was by accident. I think we had an AE here in Arkansas. I had spent 10 years on site. I had did another 6 or 7 years on the supplier side. And when this position became available, I just knew. I knew what it could be. And I knew that it was going to get me outside. I'm going to be honest. It was going to get me outside. I could still be in it and not deal with the residents, but I love the multifamily industry. And this, I tell people all the time, this is the best seat in the house. This is the best job that I have ever had. Best career. I won't even call it a job. It's the best move career-wise that I have ever made. So let's fast forward to some of the things that you did. How did you get to us? How did the multifamily industry get so blessed to end up with a stretch goal?
So, like I said, when I was with Disney, I never really took off my association management hat. I had been doing it for 8 years or 7 years prior to Disney. So even when I was at Disney and I would go to ASAE and I'd go to the annual convention, I'd see all my sales partner counterparts. You know, they'd be in the trade show hall. Of course, they had to be there. But as soon as that trade show hall was over, they were down the street at the bar having a drink or going to have drinks or going shopping or whatever. I would go to the sessions because I still kind of wanted to know what was happening in association management. And that, by the way, really is helpful because just because I'm not a practitioner. At that point, I wasn't. I could still be a source of information. So I'm having these conversations with people, and we're talking about stuff other than how many ballrooms does the Grand Floridian Hotel have. We're talking about stuff in association management. I say, oh, did you go to that session on X, Y, or Z, or membership retention strategies or whatever? And they'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm surprised that you went to that. And I'm like, look, I still care about association management. And by that token, one day I was doing a site inspection, a visit to Disney for one of my friends who was on vacation. She happened to have the Florida market, and this was a local association that was going to come to Disney and have a meeting. And halfway through breakfast, we're talking about association strategies and philosophies or whatever. The guy turns to me, he goes, do you want to stay at Disney? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, I like it here. And he said, would you ever want to go back to association management? And I was like, oh my gosh, if I have to show one more ballroom, I'm going to kill myself. Yes, I want to go back to association management. He's like, I got a vice president of business development job open, and it's here in Orlando. And so you wouldn't have to move, and you could go back to associations. It was an international association. So I left Disney and I went to go work for this association. That association was really strong when he was there. They brought in a new CEO. It wasn't as strong. Things were happening that weren't great. And I saw this opportunity to go work for the Florida Apartment Association. So I sent my resume in, and I think they got something like 200 resumes. I don't know how this stuff works where my stuff came to the top, but they called me, they interviewed me, and I just had, when you have an interview that's just like, I'm like, if I don't get this job, I don't know who's going to get this job. I mean, it was like by the end of the interview, everyone's laughing, we're friends, everything's going really well. So I wasn't surprised when they called me a few days later and said, hey, you're going to be the new executive director for the Florida Apartment Association. And that's how I ended up there. And I had a great, 8-year tenure there. We did so many great things. We grew the industry. I know all the associations in our network and the association network at NAA are growing, but they were growing exponentially because so many people are moving to Florida. So a lot of building going on, a lot of new buildings going on, a lot of new members coming in, and just a lot of excitement. We had some great legislative wins, advocacy wins, and we just really kind of upgraded everything they were doing. They had an association executive there for 28 years. She was fantastic and a legend in Florida. But as you know, things sometimes get a little stale when someone's there a long, long time. And I think towards the end of her tenure, she was like, look, it's not broken. I'm not going to fix it. And I kind of came in there and I was just all, gunfire. I was like, let's change everything. Let's rethink everything. Let's redo everything. And the members know this. They said,
I want to make sure that anybody that's on here from the Arkansas membership hears what you're saying, because when I first came, there was a lot of, we've always, what we used to, and I came in like a storm, like, no, let's do this, let's do that. So, and we're definitely growing because of, so I can feel you on that. Now, let me ask you a question. We all pride ourselves in the multifamily industry of saying that there is no other industry like this one. Family is what we really are. The other associations and other jobs that you have worked at, was it like this as far as we really are family? We watch each other kids grow up. We're at each other's weddings. We take trips. Was other industries before you came here like this?
Well, they're all.
I'll tell you why I asked you that question.
Sure.
I asked you that question because usually when I see you, you're always, and you're probably working, but you're always kind of like to yourself. You're always like in the back of the room. You're always doing something. Like I'll see you laughing, joking stuff, but usually when I see you, you're like always working. And so I don't know if it's because NAA is just putting the nail to you and got you working it hard, or I just haven't had personally an opportunity to be around fun, Josh, or something. Because usually when I come up to have a conversation with you, I'm just like, excuse me, Josh, and it's all about work or something. So I just wonder, like, do you come from an industry that's buttoned up, or I just haven't been exposed to the real you?
Well, I definitely, I'm definitely two different people, and there's definitely a fun Josh. I try to keep it professional. Marcy French knows that I can get pretty silly and funny, but I do try to keep it professional. Obviously, I'm a senior vice president with a very large trade association. I don't want to be super silly walking around. However, industries are different. I've worked for accounts receivable and accounts payable association, very buttoned down, not that much fun. Believe it or not, the metal finishers, all family-owned businesses. So they bring their wives and their kids to these conventions. I see them growing up year after year. They wanted me to bring my spouse to the convention, and they would go off and do stuff with them. So I feel like it's really dependent on the industry. Now, multifamily, I'm not just blowing smoke up your skirt. This is a very special industry. These people are very kind, loving. It's a hugging industry. When we go to our conventions, people hug. That's not
COVID
normal.
almost took us out.
Yeah.
We didn't know what to do during COVID. Yeah.
Right. No, we were like, I don't know what to do. But no, it's a very loving, inclusive kind of organization and people, because of course, what do we do for a living? We're putting people in housing and we're giving them homes. And there's nothing kind of more personal than that, right? So it kind of attracts people who want to make connections, both in relationships and in physical hugging connections. I personally love that, but it's very different than other industries. So to answer your question, yeah, it's a little bit special, but there are industries, and I think especially industries that focus on family businesses, they're also very, I've made a lot of great connections in my career in associations like that.
Well, there's definitely a lot of people out here in the audience running to your defense. Josh is hilarious. There's definitely a fun Josh. I love silly Josh. Josh, we love you. Josh, so let's talk about being a leader, Josh, and not a boss, because you bring so much to the table with you, so much skills and experience, and we're going to talk about mentorship also in that leadership role. But the difference between being a boss and being a leader, tell me, what does leadership look like for you?
Sure. So my mantra has always been, and I think I learned this from my father, you hire the right people and you let them do their job. So I hire adults, is what I like to say. I'm not here to teach you how to do your job. You got the job because you interviewed well. You showed me a skill set to do the job. So let's have you do the job. I'm here for coaching, counseling, mentorship, and leadership. That's what I do. So I don't want to do the work. I want to help you do the work. I've seen most of the things you're seeing because I've been you, but I want to help you get there. And I find that that's the most effective way I can offer my leadership as a leader in an organization. I hire well. Let's also talk about firing quickly. That's important too. If you have not a good fit, you need to clean house quickly because it will be a cancer in your organization. So that's another thing I've learned over the years. It's hard. It's horrible. I don't like to let people go. Nobody does. But it's the right thing to do for you, your organization, and for them.
I told you this was going to be a good call. I knew that you were going to be. My new name in the multifamily industry is JJ. I'm Josh Jr. Because the things that you are saying are really just resonating with me as far as your mantra goes, as far as firing fast, as far as hiring the right people. I don't want to do the work either. Right. I want the right people to put the right people in place. And when there's something so empowering about putting the right people in place. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm just over here ready to jump up out of my seat because the things that you are saying are really resonating with me. Right. As far as like, yes, that's exactly the way I feel. So continue. Right. Let's keep talking about authenticity.
And also don't get it twisted. I will do the work. Like if someone needs to work the reg desk, I'll work the reg desk. I'm not above that. But what I want to do is where I can be most effective, which is directing people on what I've seen and what I know about life and what I know about this industry and what I know about association management in general, so we can do the best job, the most professional job that we can. And so I think that's really an effective way to be a leader, is just let people do their jobs. Also, people want to feel empowered. And we don't want to feel like people are looking over your shoulder all the time and questioning what they're doing. If they are good at what they're doing and they've hired for the right skill set, you're not going to have to worry about that. You're just going to keep those guardrails on and help them get to be the best, whatever it is they're doing that they can be. I also mentioned a little bit. No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I just love that about what you said as far as, yes, I will do the work, but when you put the right people in place and being used where you're most effective. And I think that's what it's about. It's not a thing of saying that the work is below me or I'm beyond the work. It's saying that if I'm truly used where I'm most effective, then I would be the creative director instead of the on-screen talent. And that I'm gonna give that props to my girl Ashia, because that's one of the things when she and I are talking about. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, being an AE and growing into this role, I think that's a transitional piece that has to happen when you don't come from the nonprofit and association world. I come from
Sure.
being on site. So my background is different, and for the AEs out there that come from the same path that I've took, it's different because you come in being on-screen talent, because you've been on the board before, you've served in those seats, you come in doing that work, and it takes a while before it clicks and it says, no, you're the creative director. Move
Right.
out of it, put the right people in place, hire the right people, but also make sure that the right people are on committees, the right people are serving on the board, try to help streamline some of those decisions so that you're not doing the work and that you're doing the best thing that's for you to do, which is to oversee and grow the association and be strategic with the planning. So you just brought me into a full circle moment by sharing that. So I like,
No, absolutely.
that's amazing.
It's very easy. I think first of
So
all, I get super excited when people who are on site or in our supplier community become association staff or association executives, because they have that great industry knowledge. So they understand what it's like to be a member. So they just have to reverse that process and think, okay, well, what would be effective for me as a member in terms of education, in terms of networking opportunities? And then they can then program to that. But the problem is, as you noted, a lot of times, because when we are on the other side, we're working in the business. And what we want to do when we're on the AE side, we want to work on the business. We want to put the right people in the right place so the machine works for itself. And you're not doing the day to day. And some of our smaller AEs, they do have to do a lot of the day to day. But find that volunteer base that can help you get those administrative duties done so that you can focus on the bigger picture and the strategic governance of the organization and where it's headed and where it should be going. So I think that's real common, Ty, like when people come from the on-site side, and that happens a lot. We see a lot of, especially our supplier community. I think they oftentimes end up in that AE role, which is great. I have no problem with that, but they have to kind of educate themselves on that association management stuff that they're just not aware of. It's not part of their world.
okay, you might already do this for NAA. It might be part of your job, and I'm just aware of it. So forgive me. But do you teach associations this kind of stuff? Like, do you have talks
No.
with AEs? Because I would have been so much more powerful probably 2 or 3 years ago had you just made that statement to me when you said work on the business and not in the business. We're getting ready to hire another person here in Arkansas. And I've been talking to Shatori, our president, about it. And I'm like, I don't want an apartment person though. So it took me to learn. I'm like, this is not an apartment job. This is
Right.
an admin position. This is it's different. It's not, I don't want somebody that's so invested. Now, I am in NAA and the things that I'm doing, but I came out of this industry. But I think for my second person, I don't need them to be as involved. I
No,
don't want them. I mean, it's different work. I want them to work on the work and not in it.
absolutely. You want
Yeah.
great organizational skills. However, I would caution you, you know, that great leasing agent who's in charge of all the resident events, who puts on flawless resident events that really get the residents excited and create stickiness with that community. That could be a good association staff
Yeah.
member. I mean, there are things that are happening on site that I think we could probably take that skill set and make it work for the association. But you're right. If you have an opportunity to hire somebody who has some association experience, that's always great too, because they already know that stuff and they can learn the industry. This is my
Yeah.
fifth industry. So I've worked for bricks. I've worked for RVs. I've worked for accounts payable. I've worked for drug wholesalers. I've done it. And each time I had to learn the lingo and the jargon and what's their issues are. And you can do it. It's actually kind of what makes the work fun.
You know what, and I love it, and I think that you're so true about that. That leasing agent that is membership engagement, it kind of correlates to the same thing. And as we
Yeah.
continue to build and the team gets bigger, I think each person has a different place. That second person, that third person, and you be strategic about the hiring process of how
Right.
you bring the team in, and it really can go well. So let's talk about volunteerism. What does
Mhm.
being a volunteer in 2024, what does volunteer engagement, what does that look like?
So what we're seeing at NAA, what I've seen in my career over time, is that we're looking at different kinds of volunteer opportunities now. We don't have the ability to get a Gen Z or even a Gen Y individual that, and there are special individuals in those generations who do fit the old mold. But in general, they want to get in and get out, and they want to make an impact, and they want it to have impact to them personally. So we have to find volunteering opportunities that aren't sitting on a board for 4 years or going up the ladder of your association. They're a treasurer, and then there's a secretary, and then they're vice president. And after the whole thing's over, they've been doing it for 5 years. In general, these new generations don't want that. They want to get in, they want to do a project with 3 or 4 like-minded individuals, complete the project, see it come to fruition, get thanked for it, and then they're out. And maybe they'll come back next year and do something else, but it takes a special individual, and we have some on the call today who are going to stick through it for years and years and years. And that's how I am too, but there's not that many of us out there anymore. That seems to be an older generation thing. And to find young people, we got to find things that make an impact for them. So oftentimes we come at it on the volunteering side of like, we got to find something that, we have this work to get done. So we got to find someone to do this work. You got to flip the script. We know that people want to feel fulfilled in what they're doing. What are things that we could offer them that would make them feel fulfilled in what they just got done? And how does it help the organization? Of course, we don't want people doing stuff just to do it. But that's what we're finding. So it's often called micro volunteering or mini volunteering. And that's what NAA is really focused on this year. Let's identify things that aren't committees. Let's identify things that aren't the board, because there's only so many board seats. There's certainly very few officer seats. There's only 5 officers of the NAA. So there's a million other things people can do. I was just talking to the folks over in marketing. They're doing this social media ambassador coalition. So they picked 50. I think, Ty, you might be one of them, right? So they picked like 15 influencers in the multifamily space, and they're giving them stuff to do that's going to help NAA. It's already something that they're doing and they enjoy, and everybody wins. We got to find more of those things, and they're out there. We just got to start really discovering what are things that aren't committees. And quite frankly, Ty, we have 17 committees for NAA. That's too many. We have a lot of committees for NAA that I don't think are that effective. They're effective in that they're a place for like-minded individuals to come and network and get to know each other. But in terms of doing work for the association, they're not really doing work for the association. Let's focus on things that those people can do that's effective for the association and will make them feel like they did something and that their time was wisely spent. So that's where I am.
I love that, because I think when people are doing something, people are engaged. And so when you're doing work, because I've been around the industry for 20 years, I've been coming to things at NAA since 2015. And I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I did not get involved into wanting to volunteer until probably about 2 or 3 years ago. And that's when I ran into Monica and Marcy them, and I ran into it was when I was no longer the only woman of color in the room, when I felt like there was a space for me. My voice was being heard, because before then I felt like, okay, well, I'm going to apartmentalize, but I'm going with this company. I'm just going to work. I'm going to keep my head down. There's no space for me. And not all the time it was because I was a Black woman. Sometimes it's because of my age. I'm glad that we're getting away from the 20 with 20, because I'm 42 years old. And I've been in the industry for a while, but for the first 10 years of it, I wasn't privy to the world of NAA and to be able to be exposed on a national level. So equity wise, I'm 10 years old in the industry. I'm not 20 years old. So there has to be a space for everybody. And I'm glad that we're leaning into this conversation, because I know you guys are out there like, Ty has on a t-shirt today and she's usually more dressed up. So the reason that I have on my t-shirt today is because this is my Melanin and Multifamily t-shirt. And Josh and I are going to talk a little bit about affinity groups. I don't know if this announcement has been made or this is the first time that you guys will be hearing it. But Josh, please share with them about Apartmentalize and the things that we were talking about.
Sure. So one thing we did last year, we had a big push to learn more about the volunteers at NAA and why they volunteer and what's driving them. And we did this survey, and the survey came out that while a lot of people had a lot of interest in helping the association and doing the work of the association, the number one reason people joined a NAA committee was because they wanted to network with like-minded individuals and talk about best practice and what's going on in the industry. So we realized that there's already this other ecosystem that's happening, completely separate of NAA. We don't really have anything to do with it. It happened organically, and that is our affinity groups. We know we have several. We certainly know the folks at Melanin and Multifamily. There's other groups that are like that have other niche groups. Maybe it's about Latinas, maybe it's about women, maybe it's about mothers, maybe it's about LGBTQ, whatever it is. Those groups either exist in person or they exist online as a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group. And we want to get closer to those groups. We want to offer those groups, one, a spotlight for them to explain who they are and get more members, and a place for them to meet and engage with one another, because we realize, again, it's only going to be good for NAA. It's only going to create more stickiness to our organization, more affinity and greater affinity for our organization, even though we're tangentially involved in these affinity groups, but we are a place for them. So one thing, we had a great conversation at Apartmentalize in Atlanta with like Monica and Dana and some other folks who are actively engaged with these affinity groups. And we've determined that we're going to create an affinity group pavilion. And this is going to happen at our Apartmentalize in Philadelphia. We're going to have a place for folks to meet with people from the group. I know these groups have loose leadership, and oftentimes they're sort of somewhat disorganized, and that's the very basic nature of them. But we're going to have some representatives from the groups there to talk to people one-on-one about the groups. How do I get involved? What are the face-to-face interaction opportunities? What's the LinkedIn group, and how do I get added to it? How can we grow these affinity groups and make them even stronger than they currently are? We're not looking for a competitor to NAA. We're looking for augmentation to the NAA experience, and that's what these groups offer us. So look for the Affinity Group Pavilion. I know if folks are on the call and they have an affinity group and I haven't reached out to them, yeah, surprise, Dana. So we're going to do this, and we're really excited about getting these groups in place. And actually, the location of the Affinity Pavilion is in a high traffic area, so everyone's going to see it. And we're excited to have people get to experience these affinity groups. I think a lot of people don't even know they exist. Many of them exist only on LinkedIn. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to go to the DE&I committee meeting in DC in a couple weeks, and I'm going to be doing an ask, because we are having a hard time identifying all the groups that are out there and groups that might want to be part of this pavilion. We think that there's probably 10 or 12. We only really know of contacts for 3 of them. So again, if you're out there watching this, contact me. I want to make sure that we have everything involved, and it can be everything from race or gender to, dog owners in multifamily or wine lovers in multifamily, whatever it is that gets you going. We want to put you together with like-minded individuals in the multifamily industry, so that when you're at a conference, maybe y'all can go and have a wine tasting, or you can all share pictures of your dogs, whatever's going to create connections with people who might help you in your professional life as well. We want to make sure that happens.
No, I love that. I'm sitting over here jumping up in the inside, because I just told you how an affinity group made me feel, how being with like-minded women, Monica, Dana, Ashia, Marcy, and Shatoria is one of my friends from home, and even my friend Kimberly Hurd, just being around other women that's like me, like-minded women, not even just Black women, not just women of color, but women who have experienced things like me and come from the beginnings, and to now be able to go on these trips, or to go, and it's not just I'm going to Apartmentalize. It's, oh my God, I get to see Dana. I get to see Ashia. We get to have these moments. We get to be bold. I get to wear braids to Apartmentalize. Like, right. I don't have to take my hair down and change it, because there's other women that look like me, and now I will feel comfortable in this space. So I'm going to ask you, it's been a long time. I told you that I've been around NAA for a long time. And I love to see the change. What brought forth the change, though?
I think we saw the maturity of these groups, specifically Melanin Multifamily, but others as well. And we saw that was the stickiness. And we want to be a part of that. Now, there's always going to be, we're a big $47 million organization with a big staff. There's always going to be concerns about the legalities of these groups, right? We don't want to attach ourselves too closely, because we don't have any control over what Melanin Multifamily does or any of these other groups. However, we want to incubate them. We want to treat them carefully so that we can grow them, because again, we think it's a great augmentation to your NAA membership. So that's been a lot of the discussions on staff for the past 5 months, is legally, what can we kind of create so that we're not responsible for some crazy thing that might happen in one of these affinity groups, all the while connecting ourselves and being a resource. Even so much as like one of the initiatives is we're going to have a web page on the NAA website. If you're interested in affinity groups, here's the exhaustive list of affinity groups. Please know these are not us. We don't have any control over what they do or what they say or how they behave. However, we want you to know that they exist, and we encourage you to go in and research them and find a group that connects with you and your background and what your interests are. So I think that was the change, just seeing that, just honestly seeing it. You guys are very visible, not because you're all black ladies, but because we see you at events and you're enjoying each other. You're enjoying each other's company. You're maturing to a level now where you're having receptions, you're getting sponsors, you're getting t-shirt and swag. This is a group that we want to be affiliated with, right? We're just glomming onto your success.
You know what? I love it because NAA is a smart machine. And you said, hey, it is what it is, and we're being authentic and real. We see what's going on, and we want to be a part of it before it gets to going too big. And hey, I'm going to say it. I love that I'm already a part of the board. I'm already part of the Noir board for Melanin and Multifamily. Thank you so much, Monica, because it's getting bigger and bigger and being more effective. In 2024 is all about transformation and changing lives, because when this industry changed lives. You can start out being a leasing agent in this industry and become the VP of a company off of a high school diploma. I mean, let's just be honest. And your CAM being your bachelor's degree, your CAPS being your master's degree. Like, it happens like that, and that's what this industry lays forth for people. So we've talked about NAA, we've talked about Disney, we talked about association work. Let's talk about Josh being a dad. Before we run out, let's just talk about Josh on a personal level. Who is Josh as a family person, a dad? What do you do on the weekends?
Well, Josh needs a hobby is one thing. I was thinking this morning, I was just getting ready. I was like, I don't know what happens to hobbies. Like when you're little and younger, like you have all these hobbies and things you do, and then you start working and you start parenting and you kind of lose yourself. So Josh is a dad of a college sophomore who needs to find what his passion is outside of work, is where Josh is right now. And that's kind of my focus for 2024. When you see me, I need you to ask me, like, what's your hobby? What group did you join? Because I need to start joining groups. I moved from Orlando to Virginia a year and a half ago for this job. Also because I have family members here. I have my parents who are elderly and they're getting on in age, and I want to be there with them and for them at this time. I have my sister and my nieces. So that's kind of was the impetus to move up to Virginia. But it also meant I have to find some friends because I was in Orlando for 20 years. So that's not always easy as a 50-year-old man, like trying to find like, who's my friend group? But in terms of my daughter is a spectacular individual. I'm so proud. Best thing I ever did. I know people say that all the time, but she really is my accomplishment. She is on a full ride academic scholarship to Purdue University. She's studying civil engineering. She is way smarter than me. And she'll let you know that too. She'll tell you. And she's just having the time of her life. When our kids go, if they go to college or if we can get them to that next step, it's a huge accomplishment for us. But to see her really embracing and quite frankly, getting overextended like her father did in college. She's in every club, every sorority that you can pick. But I love that. And she has that same sort of organizational management background that I do. So she's like calling me and she's like, Dad, I had a court board call today and I had to talk to the alumni of the sorority and try to see if I could get them to donate items for our silent auction. I'm like, you have your father's job. You and I do the same thing. You're just doing it for the sorority and I'm doing it for a job. So it's kind of cool to see that too. But she's thriving, and it was just a real pleasure to be a parent. I think it was just something I was meant to do. I was actually pretty good at it, I think. I hope. You could ask her.
You know what? That's amazing. So my husband has a 25-year-old son that I get to be a bonus mom to, that he's finishing some classes in college right now because he's going to school to be a physical therapist, but he's also about to get married this year. So we have an amazing daughter-in-law so you're right. When you've accomplished those things as a parent and you get to see your child thrive, there is no other feeling like it. Oh, yeah. And I have the pleasure of having a loudmouth 6-year-old that's in the first grade. And you're right. Woof. And so I can't wait to see him thrive. and get on out the house and do those next steps also.
Yeah.
So Josh is looking for hobbies. Josh needs some friends out there in Virginia. So Dana,
Josh needs to
you're
date.
out
Josh
there.
also needs to date. If you're looking to date, I'm here.
Dana, you're out there in Virginia. Hook Josh up with some friends because we know you know everybody because you
Yeah.
stay on the go, Sid.
If not, I'm just in
So
my
what's
apartment just
next for you?
watching TV.
So what's next for Josh? Like, is this the role that you're in at NAA? I know we're never gonna lose you, but is that where you're gonna be at? Does that grow out from where it is now? Like, what's next for
Yeah,
Josh
look,
Go?
I've only been here a year and a half, and I love the fact that I could carry my 8 years with FAA and then now move it into NAA. So I've got to stay in the industry, but I get to try new things and be, at a bigger castle. But I'm here for a while for certain. I'm enjoying my job. It's full of challenges. Like I said, NAA is really focused right now on the volunteer and member experience, and that's my wheelhouse. So as long as we're focused on that and what our members are getting out of membership, I'm excited and I'm invigorated each day to come to work and do the work, and I love it. So this is what's in it for me. I'm loving being in charge of not just the membership and the affiliates, but also the meetings department, also NAAEI. Those are also my areas, and they each have great things that they're doing. EI is doing some really cool stuff with the Growth Task Force, trying to find new ways to reinvigorate that organization and make it essential to the education of people in the multifamily industry. We just launched a new credentialing system that took forever to get off the ground, but now is really doing the great work and making it hopefully easier for AEs like Ty to do their job. And then the meetings department, we are growing that apartmentalized to a size that you can't imagine. We have dreams of making this a really big show. It's already a huge show. It's going to be even bigger and making it more impactful for the people who go to it, adding some cool elements to it that we've not had before. And then also, starting new meetings. We have Cultivate, which is a smaller meeting that we've just launched last year. It's in its second year now for senior leadership to talk about their experiences and really get to know one another and network in a cool way and learn some stuff that's really effective for them and their jobs. And of course, we have Advocate coming up in a few weeks, which we have record attendance for. So everything's just kind of blowing up. I wish I could tell you who our Wednesday speaker is in Philadelphia. It's going to blow your mind. But we don't have a signed contract, so I can't say who it is. But they're really, really a great get. And as you probably already know, we have Marky Mark. We have Mark Wahlberg on Friday, who I think has a lot of really cool things to say and will be an impactful speaker. So I'm just excited about everything happening in NA. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. We're definitely not sitting around doing nothing. So that's good.
No, there's definitely a lot of cool things going on. And a plug in for me before Mark Wahlberg comes on Friday, Lori Goldman and I will take the stage right before him with a session titled We Don't Belong Here. So it's about imposter syndrome. So please come out, hear Lori and I. Josh, we talked about mentorship, allyship. Mention my name in every room that you're in at NAA.
I will.
I'm gonna plug me. When the guy that does NAA TV decide that that's no longer his thing, because he's been doing that for a long time. I mean, it's been years. I was interviewed by him one time, so I'm just saying, if he ever decides that that's no longer his thing, please throw my name in the hat. I think I would be amazing to stand on a red carpet and interview people. So just real talk though. Thank you for the conversation today. Thank you for everything that you share with us. Some of the things that you share with me helped me personally in my career, just being an AE. Anybody that's out there that's listening, that is looking for a mentor. I know you said, I'm gonna put you on the spot. You said mentorship was important. How, if they say, you know what, I want Josh to be my mentor because I got your email address and your phone number, so I'm just gonna call you sometimes.
Oh my gosh, I would be overwhelmed. I would be so excited to do that. You know what? The thing is, everybody wants a mentor, but no one's asking for one. Go ahead and ask, and you can ask me. I would love to be your mentor. I'd be your mentor.
Will you be my mentor?
I would love to be your mentor.
Association executive.
Absolutely. We could call each other once a month and just check in with each other, find out what's going on, what challenges you're having, and just talk about life. I think that mentorship is so important. I would not be in this role were it not for Don Mancuso 27 years ago telling me, hey, I think you might want to do association management. You should get your CE. This is how you behave at a meeting. Let me take you to a conference. Let me show you how a conference works. Let me show you how to properly network with people and remember people's names. All those things she taught me, I didn't learn that on my own. She decided that she was just going to do that for me. I don't know why. And here I am today as Senior Vice President at NAA. So I think it's super essential that people find their people to be their mentors and ask.
Well, you guys have heard it here today on Talking with Todd. Josh Gold is my new mentor. So if you're looking for one, call somebody else. I'm going to take up all Josh extra time with pouring into me. So he's already taken. But I like, honestly, I'm going to reach out to you after this call because you're right. People don't ask, but I am asking today. When I first met Marcy, I put that same stamp on her back. I'm like, you're my mentor, Marcy. And I've been able to speak on so many stages. So I think having different mentors for different areas in our career is super important also. And I'm never planning to leave the association world. And I love Arkansas and all the things that we stand for, and anything that I can do to make us more powerful and a great partner for NAA, that is what I'm willing to do. So to have you feed into me and pour into me would be exceptional. So I definitely look forward to connecting with you.
I would love to. And again, if anybody wants to meet silly, fun Josh, pull me aside. I'll be silly and fun. I got to be buttoned up in the back of the room. But like if we're in the hallway or we go for drinks after, then you get to meet silly, fun Josh, which he's a great guy.
So we're going to hold you to that because the next melanin and the next event that we have, which we'll see you in DC. So I'm going to talk to my melanin girls and we're going to make sure that even without the whole group, that the Noir Club gets a chance to really sit down with you, because I'm going to be shady with you. Off screen, we've had some conversations about you on the phone, Josh. Like, we want to know Josh's position and really where does he stand. So I'm glad that we were able to see where you stand. And I think that being able to just have some drinks with you and really just get to know you as a person and just really bond that relationship. I look forward to doing that with you and just to picking your brain and learning so much from you. And before we end today, Josh, is there anything else that you want to say to the people out there?
You know what? The only other thing I wanted to mention, and this is a lesson from Disney, so it's a good one to end on, is Disney does a great job of a lot of training and all that stuff that they do, but they also are very focused on empowering their cast members. Every cast member can make any decision up to, I think, a $500 impact, which is a lot, but not a lot. So when there's someone at the front desk or someone in the parks who's having a bad experience, that person doesn't have to ask a boss. They don't have to go to someone else for permission to make something happen. Try to do that in your own organizations. Try to find whether it's a monetary amount or a thing that you can allow someone to do. Let them do it on their own. Trust them that they're not going to blow that opportunity and they're going to use it for good, not evil. Because I saw that one tenet, that one philosophy make such a big impact at the Walt Disney Company. Whether I was, walking the parks and I'd see a cast member go get ice creams for an entire family because they seem to be having a rough time, or they were able to make something happen that wouldn't normally happen. It can happen at Disney, but it can happen in your organization too. Whatever that thing is, just make stuff happen for people. But more importantly, let your frontline employees do those things without permission and know that they're not going to get fired for doing that. They were doing the right thing for the organization.
That's what makes these magical.
Right.
That's what makes it magical. I love that. Empower your people. I'm going to take that into my association as I bring in somebody else. And I love that. But I got to go get the owner. I got to go find out. If you empower your people to be able to make those decisions, it really does change the customer experience.
Absolutely.
So,
Ty, it was so great talking to you today. I'm so excited to see you in a couple of weeks.
I am excited to see you also. And I'm just excited to continue to work with you, to serve with you, and just continue this fight that impacts the lives of the members and the residents that live in the multifamily industry. Josh, thank you so much. It's been my absolute pleasure having this conversation with you. And I'll see you in a few weeks.
I'll see you. Thanks, Ty. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.